Graham.
Moderator, Commissioners, everyone listening. I've got some news for you today. It's news we've been waiting on for over 10 years. Longer-serving Commissioners may recall it wasn't so long ago when this Assembly was hearing about the severe deficits in pension schemes running into the tens of millions of pounds. I recall that Assembly, 2014. It sparked action, collaboration. Updates have been given to this Assembly, to the Assembly in this slot over the years. Today, I'm delighted to be able to update you further. The pension schemes are in great shape, the best they have ever been in their history. With no exceptions, each of the scheme sections is in surplus and a prudent set of actuarial assumptions. This is the gold standard. And importantly, achieving this gold standard brings a number of significant benefits to the scheme members and also to the agencies of the Church with responsibility for the schemes. No one was untouched by the pandemic and related restrictions. In the pensions area, our pensions manager and her team ensured pensions were paid throughout. In doing so, she felt the support of the Chief Officer, who worked with her to ensure that IT arrangements were available for home working and support was available when attendance was required at the office. Now, this news on funding levels is the news we've been waiting for. It's a significant milestone, a historic moment, not only in the life of the pension schemes and their members, but also for the broader Church. Well, having waited so long, it may feel like that news is over in a flash, especially in this quick, updated report. It's not. The positive impacts will endure for decades to come. Moderator, as I'm not a Commissioner, may I ask that the Principal Clerk moves the deliverance.
Moderator, I so move. Seconded. Thank you very much. Any questions to Mr. Coffey? No, there's nothing showing. And I must now move to fast track. I have no requests to speak on the sole section of the deliverance. I'll just pause for a moment if anyone does. No one has done their... Oh, sorry. Anna Rodwell, and followed by Neil Glover. Anna.
Sorry, I'm having terrible trouble with my Zoom. I'm fading in and out. I just wanted to say what an extraordinary achievement and congratulations to the Pension Fund. That's amazing. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Anna. And Neil Glover, please.
Thank you, Moderator. Neil Glover, 451. I was involved in huge numbers of meetings to do with pension deficits, not least the cross-reach deficit, which was resolved and reported in the cross-reach report. I just wanted also just to say what a significant milestone this is, pay huge tribute to the amount of work that's done. And I think as a Church of Scotland, we can be incredibly gratified that we've reached this point.
Thank you very much, Neil. As has been discussed, we need to put this to a vote. Will all those press your buttons for or against? Voting open now. Voting closed. There are voted for 441, against 0. And can I just, Graham, echo what has been said there? That is a tremendous good news story you bring to the General Assembly, and congratulations due to you and your trustees. And as you indicated, this is something which will have benefits for some time to come. So many thanks indeed on behalf of the Assembly. I now call for the report of the Nomination Committee and call the Reverend Julie Rennick.
Moderator. It gives me great pleasure to bring our report this year. In my video introduction, I spoke of the challenge that we have had this past season. It's heartening that members, elders, deacons and ministers have been willing to accept nomination, and we present those here named for the approval of the Assembly. Moderator, I present the report and move the deliverances.
Good. I have questions from Ross Blackman and Greg Robertson. Ross, please.
Thank you, Moderator. Blackman 316. Actually, I think my questions picked up in the section of deliverance. I'm moving a little bit later, so I'm happy to move on at this point. Thank
you very much, Ross. Greg.
Hi there. Greg Robertson, 761. I'd just like to start by bringing a few points and questions.
It's a questions, Greg. It's questions. It's not making points. If you want to make a point, maybe come in the appropriate part of the deliverance. But this is for questions, not making comment. But if you want to identify the part of the deliverance, you could come in on that.
It's a question as well as points. So I don't know.
If you've got a question, by all means, ask it.
There are no young trustees since Jamie Lockhart stepped down. Is there any nominations currently of young trustees to take over someone in the youth age? And is there any assistance in regards to moving meetings to suit times as required? As Jamie had to step down due to work commitments because meetings were during the day.
I think that's a well-framed question. I'll invite the convener to respond to.
Well, thank you for your question, but the makeup of the Assembly Trustees does not fall within the remit of the Nominations Committee. We act only in an advisory capacity. All nominations can only be considered by the people who nominate themselves or who are nominated. So there's very little we can do if nobody young is put forward to the Assembly Trustees, although we're part of that process. There's nothing we can do unless the young people actually put themselves forward. That's really all I can say.
Thank you very much. I now move to fast tracking. I have no request to speak at present on sections 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a proposed amendment to 5, so that doesn't count. 6, 7, 8, or 9. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, or 9. I'll pause for a moment if anyone wishes to speak on any of these. There being no requests to speak on 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9, I declare these passed. We now go to section 2, where there just has appeared that someone was. Yes, David Locke, please, David.
Thank you, Moderator. It was really a question about the perennial problem of nominations. And the committee always seems to think there's a problem in people responding. From my end, I seem to see it as a problem of communication from the committee, not in a way that encourages people to respond. People almost need to be asked personally if they would like to serve when it's with their own church. And somehow there's a gap between what the committee sees in the need for people and how people feel encouraged or discouraged from volunteering. And I just wonder if they can explore different ways of being more proactive.
Thank you. Convener.
Thank you. I think we're always open to review, and we've already reflected that things needed to change in the way people responded this year. The invitation to nomination goes out to invite others to recognise gifts and skills in the people around them and approach them to say, would you like to serve the wider church? I think you'd be good at, and identifying whatever that may be. If the Commissioner has got any ideas on other ways of doing it, we're always open to suggestion and would welcome any additional input. You can email me or nominations@the Church of Scotland, and any suggestions would be gratefully received. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we now move to a vote on section 2? Press your buttons for or against. So voting open. Voting closed. They voted for 388, against 2. So I declare section 2 carried. And can I make a plea that you speak if you have... No, please try and resist the temptation to speak unless you've really got something substantive. And we now come to a proposed new section from Ross Blackman. Ross, please.
Thank you, Moderator. Blackman 316. I hope the section I'm proposing is fairly plain. It allows even more transparency across the groups reporting to the Assembly, and actually probably fits fairly nicely with the following new section that another Commissioner is proposing as well, but it's distinct from that. I haven't got a seconder, and I understand the convener may be minded to accept this, so I simply move the new section.
Thank you very much. I notice it is seconded. Any questions? Any discussion? Convener?
Thank you for advance notice of this, Ross. Unfortunately, I'm actually going to resist this because of the way it's termed. We already work with all the reporting bodies and all efforts are made to be representative if at all possible. However, many of these subgroups are specialist and therefore necessarily limited in their representation. The sheer scope of the number of subgroups of each committee would overwhelm the already large remit that we have. Often subgroups have subgroups or exist for one small task for a few weeks or a few months. It would be virtually impossible to manage it. We can, however, commit to continue to give input on a regular basis to all the groups. This we do already, having been involved in the new Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Group, as agreed by the Assembly Trustees. So, although I'm resisting this, we are committing to continue to communicate as much as we can and issue guidance to the subgroups.
Thank you very much. We must now move to a vote on Mr. Blackman's proposed new section. All those in favour and those against, press your buttons now. Not seeing any votes coming up, but they're starting to come.
Yes.
Voting is closed. There are voted for 115 and against 319. Therefore, that new section does not pass. I'm now going to ask the Reverend Douglas Crichton to move in. My understanding, Douglas, is that the convener is minded to accept. I call Douglas.
Okay, thank you. 415, Douglas Crichton. Moderator, yes, I believe that she's minded to accept part of it. But I think there's a bit that she would like to remove or to discuss. Earlier in the week, Iona Kimmett had proposed an under-40s forum where the youngest voices would be heard and could be heard. But I felt, and I still do feel, that such a thing would be heard but not listened to. And I think there is a clear difference between those two words. As a church, we've not got the Youth Assembly anymore, and after a few years we had the Children's Assembly, and it doesn't exist. But I don't think these things perhaps allow the voices to be listened to. Perhaps let's use the already in place structures that we have within the church, as the nominations committee do appoint to. So I'm pleading and I'm urging the convener to accept this one, and some of the other bits in it, not just on age, because there are practical problems that need to be addressed. Younger people generally work or study. Those things are often inflexible. Family life needs to be juggled, and arguably doing things like this by Zoom make it easier. But I do know I'm not the only one who learned new juggling skills last night as the session overran. Edinburgh-centric meetings, we're reviewing how we do things as a national church. So maybe now is the time to take stuff on the road, meet in different places and in different ways, new ways as well. I realise that there are going to be issues about amending the way it's been, and this is going to take time, and there will be things to iron out. There will be barriers for us to overcome. But as a church, let's not look at the hurdles, but ways that we can get over them and round them. We can't get on and do the work that needs to be done if we're restricted by age, geography, employment, and ability to travel, or indeed not. Of course, meeting in person is great, but does every meeting need to be done? Could we do things in a hybrid form? Does it need to be on a weekday during the working day, as Ross has already said? You know,
I'm told the convener is prepared to accept the whole.
Changes that need to be done. So we've embraced change at congregational level, and the length and breadth of Scotland have responded well. So I'm asking.
Douglas, I think you've been muted, but I was to say it so I could tell you that the convener has indicated she's willing to accept the whole of your new section. And it's seconded. Yes.
We could move to a vote.
Any questions? Discussion? Can we move to a vote, please? Those in favour? Oh, Sheena, have you got a question? Can you make it very brief, please? Your name was down there, actually.
Moderator, it's not, Sheena or 0 to 1. Moderator, it's not so much a question, but just to add, just to request that there is something about a recognition of gender in there, because as I'm sure people have, if we did any analysis of the people who have input into the assembly over the period, that it tends to be men who contribute, who have more confidence to contribute. And when I look at this amendment, while I'm fully supporting it, I think it doesn't actually open the door for women who might feel less able to participate.
Thank you, Sheena. And Greg Robertson.
I wonder if I could suggest, I'm getting really, really concerned that we are now at 23 minutes past 3. We still have other committees to hear. We have an elaborate security processional process that comes nearer 4 o'clock, and we really need to get through the business and make some space for that. I'm sorry to be pressing, but we really are in quite a difficult strait if we don't carry on.
For the Commissioner, we are happy to accept this. We have a policy of always, wherever we can, seeking gender balance in all the committees that we populate. It is one of the criteria that we always look at. And as a female convener who has been far from quiet this week, I am there to plug that cause for as long as I'm in this position. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Convener. That's very helpful. Move to a vote. Voting open for or against this section proposed by Douglas Crichton. Voting open. Voting closed. There have voted for 405 and against 23, so that section is added. We come to section 5, which is an amendment in the name of the convener. I think.
Yes, it is. It's just an admin amendment to add the name of Ewan Glenn to the Legal Questions Committee.
Seconded? Is that amendment seconded? We now, any questions? Any discussion? We now proceed to a vote on the amendment. Will please show for or against the amendment. Voting open. Voting closed. They voted for 415 and against 2. Therefore, that amendment is carried. We now vote on section 5 as amended. Voting open. Voting closed. There are voted for 409 and none against. Therefore, section 5 as amended stands part. Should we take the deliverance as a whole? Is it the will of the General Assembly? Thank you very much. I now call for the report of the Selection Committee. And can I invite the Reverend Neil Glover, please?
Neil Glover, number 451. I bring the names that the Selection Committee are proposing to sit on the Special Committee on Ethical Investment. I believe they'll be seeing on a slide in a moment. They're Val Brown, who works in Christian Aid relating to churches, and was also a vice convener formerly of Church and Society. Sir Ewan Brown, who has huge experience in all kinds of different businesses and charities, as well as in the Church of Scotland. Hannah Dunlop, a youth representative, highly commended as an elder in her home congregation, and who has travelled widely abroad and has researched these issues greatly. The Reverend Dr. Thomas Kisitu, formerly many years ago from the Kenyan Methodist Church, now in St Nicholas Sighthill in Edinburgh, who is passionate about theology and justice, and Alistair Ronald, who worships in Glasgow and who has extensive experience in Barclays Bank, in investment banks, and in looking after a range of charities. In bringing these names to the Assembly, we have sought to embody skills relating to finance, theology, and ethics, and have also striven to ensure that there is diversity with respect to ethnicity, gender, and age. And we are very glad to bring these names to the General Assembly.
Thank you very much, Neil. I did see it was seconded. It came up. Any questions? Any discussion? We now fast track. Anyone wish to speak on the one section? There being no request to speak, I declare section 1 passed, and therefore the deliverance as a whole is the will Assembly. Thank you very much. I now move, the General Assembly now calls for the report of the Church Hymnary Trustees, and I call Lord Brodie.
Moderator, I present the report of the trustees of the Church Hymnary Trust. The proposed deliverance will be to receive the report. As I'm not a commissioner, I will have to ask the principal clerk to make the motion. The only further thing I would say is that as the Trust says, I think on each occasion when they address the Assembly, we encourage applications for grants which come within our Trust purposes. I have nothing to add to that.
Thank you very much.
Moderator, I so move.
Seconded.
Seconded. Any questions? We now move to fast track. There is no request to speak on the one section of the deliverance. I'll pause briefly. There being no request to speak, I declare by fast track that section 1 is passed, and therefore the deliverance, I seek the approval of the General Assembly for the deliverance, and thank you very much. And thank you, I'm sure it will be noted what you said about the grant applications. Thank you very much. We now, the General Assembly now calls for the report of the Church of Scotland Trust. Oh, sorry, and I call on Mr. Tom Watson.
Moderator, my report on behalf of the Church of Scotland Trust covers the 4 distinct areas of work that we undertake: third-party trusts, Pakistan, the Holy Land, and the International Presbytery. Commissioners will note that COVID-19 has had some impact on our work. On most of my report, I have no particular update to make, so I'll save some time. I think we should note, however, that recent events in the Holy Land will have a significant impact on the Trust position. We are custodians of the financial and property affairs in that part of the world. Now, of course, the human and social conditions there are of paramount importance, but I do have to record that there will be perhaps some financial consequences. So, given the time equation, I don't really want to take up any more time of Assembly. So I commend the report to Assembly, and as I'm not a Commissioner, I would ask the Principal Clerk to move the deliverances.
Moderator, I so move.
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Any questions? There being no questions, I now proceed to the fast track. I have no requests to speak in respect of any section of the deliverance. I will pause. There being no requests to speak, I declare that sections 1, 2 and 3 are passed, and therefore I ask for the General Assembly to approve the deliverance as a whole. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Ms Wilson. Thanks for all the work you and your fellow trustees do.
Thank you.
Thank you. General Assembly will now call for the report of the Church of Scotland Investors Trust. And I call on Mr Brian Duffin. Mr Duffin.
Moderator, Robert Bergen, 85. I'm Vice Chairman of the Church of Scotland Investors Trust, and I present this report because our Chairman was unable to be present today. I'm sure that all Commissioners and representatives will have viewed the video on the Church's website, and I would simply like to highlight the following brief summary. We report on the performance of our three funds over the past 2 years, as it wasn't possible to report at the 2019 General Assembly, and the performance of the funds is set in the context of economic and financial market behaviour. Secondly, we comment on communication with our investors. In the face of the investment challenges arising from the COVID-19 pandemic, including the reduction in income distributions paid by each of our three funds, we issued regular updates, and we trust that our increased communications have been helpful to all of our investors, including congregational treasurers. It is our intention to continue this programme of more regular communication. The third section of the report focuses on the importance of non-financial considerations, which are used to select or exclude industrial sectors and companies for investment. In current terminology, this is referred to as ESG, environmental, social and governance. And this has become more significant and indeed more complex in recent years. Along with the Faith Impact Forum, we were pleased to support the proposal, which was approved by the Assembly yesterday, to set up a special committee, the names of whom have just been approved, to establish a new framework for decisions in this area. And we look forward to engaging with this special committee in its work over the next 2 years. Finally, we seek the consent of the Assembly for new trustee appointments. We thank those trustees who are standing down after many, and in one case many, many years of service. We also thank the staff who've been responsible for the continued smooth running of Investors Trust and the services provided to our investors in very difficult circumstances. Moderator, I present the report and move the deliverance as a whole.
Thank you very much, Mr Bergen. Any questions? There being no questions, we will move to the fast track. And at present, I have no request to speak on any of the sections but I will pause. There being no request to speak, I declare using the fast track that sections 1, 2, 3 and 4 are carried, and therefore I put the deliverance as a whole to the General Assembly. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Bergen. Pass on to the other trustees our thanks, and indeed to those who are retiring for their long service, give them our special thanks. Thank you very much. That concludes the business for this session. We meet again at 4 p.m, and I'd ask you now to rise. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all now and for always. Amen.